Hola, buenos días o buenas tardes, año 7. Nice to see you again. This is lesson number 2 of week 3. Continuing with our topic, ¿qué deportes haces? What sports do you do? Empezamos. Entonces, por favor, escribir el título, ¿qué deportes haces? Subrayar con una regla. Also write the date, por favor, la fecha en español, subrayar con una regla también. Whilst you're doing that, I'll remind you our aims for this week. Vocabulary about sports using the present tense of jugar and hacer with expressions of frequency and preposition. We'll apply the vocabulary learned by writing a paragraph for some sentences, which we'll do in our next lesson, and we'll evaluate and set targets on how we can improve further. Okay, let's get going. So your starter task, can you translate these sentences into English? So this is recalling our learning from our previous lesson about the sports, but obviously I've made it a little bit more difficult because I'm adding in time phrases as well. So if you could translate those, I would write them in English and Spanish in your books. There's an extension task as well for how would you say, sometimes I do athletics. Okay, give yourself about 3 to 4 minutes to complete that task. Excelente. Let's see how you got on with that. So, number 1, los fines de semana juego al voleibol. We've got at the weekend, I play volleyball. Número 2, todos los días hago ciclismo. Is every day I go or I do cycling. So in English, we don't really say I do cycling. We tend to say more I go cycling, and it's implied that it's something you do. In Spanish, we have to use the verb hacer, which means to do. First person, hago, I do cycling. But I put it there so it in English, in I do and I go, so it makes a bit more sense. Número 3, de vez en cuando hago equitación. Sometimes I do horse riding. Número 4, 2 veces a la semana juego al hockey. Twice a week I play hockey. Y número 5, una vez al año hago esquí. So this one was a bit trickier. Once a year I do skiing or I go skiing. So give yourself a mark out of 5. Hopefully you got that correct. If you didn't, please write it down correctly. It's good to have an accurate record of that in your notes. The extension, how would you say sometimes I do athletics? De vez en cuando or a veces hago atletismo. I've written both down because you can say sometimes in 2 different ways in Spanish, de vez en cuando or a veces. So it's important that you can recognize both of those. Okay, continuamos. So today's class, what does it hold in store for us? We're going to look today at the grammar point on the verbs jugar and hacer. We'll practice with the reading and writing, and then we'll do some extension of our learning as well before ending with the paper. Okay, so jugar, to play. It is an irregular verb, as you are coming to see now. Quite a lot of the important verbs in Spanish are irregular ones, but it's not so radically different. Okay, it's just a little, in fact, this is actually called a stem changing verb, but I'll tell you that information and then you'll hear that again at some point in your learning. So it means that as you can see, the first person, juego, to get the right sound, all we've done is add the UE, to add an E before the G to give the right sound. We've done that for the first, second, third person and the third person plural as well. But you'll notice the we play or you plural play is the same conjugation. If you were to remove the AR, you would add the appropriate ending, which for we is amos and you plural is ice. Okay, so that's quite a lot of information. So I'm just going to read that out to you. So we've got, this is the full conjugation. We've got juego, juegas, juega, jugamos, jugáis, and juegan. So remember our j right from the back of the throat sounds a bit like you've got phlegm, which I know is a bit gross, but that's the best way to describe it. And you'll see the accent over the A in jugáis. That's where you put the stress. Okay, it's not jugáis, it's jugáis. Okay, so you can see our little icon there. I would like you to take this opportunity to practice saying that full conjugation of the verb jugar. So pause this video and give that a go. Muy bien. And now I would like you to write that down in your books, or wherever it is that you're working at the moment, whatever you're working from. Make a really good, accurate note of that full verb. So write down the juego is I play, juegas is you play, so you can refer back to that, which you will need to do at various points in this lesson and future lessons. Okay, so pause this video whilst you do that. Muy bien, continuamos. Next, el próximo verbo, the next verb, hacer, to do. Now, it is an irregular verb, but it isn't that irregular. If you notice, it's an ER verb. So for those of you who remember the endings to ER verbs in the present tense, it's pretty much exactly the same apart from in the first person. So the first person is I, and we have to change that to hago. The rest of the verb follows a normal, regular formation of the verb when you're looking at the conjugation. So we have hago, haces, hace, hacemos, hacéis, and hacen. Okay, so once again, as with jugar, please pause this video and do your best pronunciation of that verb. Muy bien, excelente. And now, as before, please pause the video and make a really good, accurate note of that verb in your books or wherever it is you're working. Muy bien. Hopefully you've taken a couple of minutes to complete that and we can move on. So let's move on to some practice. We're going to do a reading and writing. Vamos a practicar los verbos. We're going to practice the verbs. So you can see here we're doing a gap fill exercise. There are 6 sentences and you need to write in the correct version of the verb according to the English there. So number 1, something al fútbol is I play football. That's the I play is the bit that you need to write in. The second one, we do swimming. So as you're doing this, make sure you're very clear in your mind whether you're using jugar or hacer. Look back at your conjugation. That's why you've got a good, accurate record of that verb. So you can go back to that and look at how you can complete that sentence. Now, there's an extension activity. Write down what sports a brother or sister or a friend does and the frequency that they do them. So that is quite an extension if you can do that. So you'll be changing it to the third person. Okay, give yourself about 3 to 4 minutes to complete that task. Muy bien, continuamos. Let's see how you got on. So the first one we have juego al fútbol. Número 2, hacemos natación. Número 3, hacen artes marciales, and it's hacen because it's they do. Número 4, juega al tenis, he plays tennis. Número 5, you, so that's the singular, you do horse riding, haces. And the last one is they play basketball, juegan al baloncesto. Okay, give yourself a score out of 6 for how you got on with that. And for the extension task, obviously it's a bit tricky for me to give you guidance on how to mark that, but all I can say is you would conjugate hacer to be hace and jugar to be juega, then whatever sport or activity, and then whatever time phrase. So for example, una vez a la semana, once a week. Okay, so that just gives you a bit of guidance. Continuamos. So extending our learning, let's extend ourselves. So far we have looked at sports, we've looked at expressions of frequency, and we are now, as a consequence of looking at jugar and hacer, we can change who we're talking about as to who is doing or playing the sport. Okay, so you've done that all in a lesson and 3/4, so that's really good. To extend ourselves even further, we can add a time now. This is quite a challenge activity, and it's recalling your learning from last week when we did times, and we can put that all together now. So for example, we can add together los lunes, juego al baloncesto a las 6. So you see, all we're doing is building on that. We've got on Mondays, I play basketball at 6 o'clock. Okay. 2 veces a la semana hago natación a las 2. So for each of those, if we were talking about either you or he or she or they, all we would simply do is take the verb, the conjugation, the juego, and we'd change it to whoever we were talking about. And the same with hago. Hago would become haces or hace or hacemos. We do swimming a las 2, for example. Okay, so let's practice that. Vamos a practicar. These sentences that I've written here have got all mixed up, and your task is to put them in order. Now, I've given you an example there, which is the one that was on the previous page. Los lunes juego al baloncesto a las 6. On Mondays, I play basketball at 6. So good formula to remember, it's the frequency first, then the sport, and then the time. If you look at those sentences 1 to 5, you've also got a few little hints. Well, I'm going to give you a little hint and tip. Obviously, capital letters always start the sentence, so use that to help you, and full stops end the sentence. Okay, so even if you can do those two, and then you can fill in the gaps in the middle, give it your best shot. Okay, the extension task is to translate it into English. Okay, so pause this video and give yourself probably 4 to 5 minutes to complete that task. Muy bien, so this is how it should be. Todos los días juego al fútbol a las 5. And that's every day I play football at 5 o'clock. Número 2, los viernes hace patinaje a las 11. So that's on Fridays, he or she does skating at 11 o'clock. Número 3, los fines de semana juego al tenis a las 3. At the weekends, I play tennis at 3 o'clock. Número 4, los martes jugamos al voleibol a las 7. On Tuesdays, we play volleyball at 7 o'clock. And número 5, a veces hago esquí por la tarde. Okay, and that's sometimes I do skiing in the afternoon. Okay, we've been translating them as we've gone along. So give yourself a score out of 5 for that task. Muy bien, so moving on to the final part, our plenary. I would like you to set a timer for 1 minute and say out loud, so there's no need to do any writing here, the full verb conjugation for jugar and hacer. Keep repeating it until the minute is up. I would ideally like you to do it from memory, but if you can't, then do it with your books in front of you. And this is a really good drill to remind ourselves of those 2 very key important verbs. Finally, if you can write down what you have learned today. Muy bien. Okay, Year 7, well done. You've done really well, lots and lots of activity in that class, so well done. And I look forward to seeing you on the next lesson. Gracias y adiós.